Good morning, Lisette. It's good to see you. Hi. Hello, Gina. I'm hoping you'll be able to hear better today because hopefully my home internet works a little better than campus.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
That's good. I was just looking for the link because I thought maybe I should send the link to the whole class in case they didn't get the announcement that I didn't want to give everybody germs. Let's see. Morning, Hannah. Sorry. Like I said, I've been talking all day to my
No
daughter.
worries. Good morning, Dr. Brian.
Been talking all morning to my daughter because she's home from school and I still can't keep my voice clear. I can't figure out how to send the link, but we can get started since it's 10:51. And the first thing I want to check, if you don't mind, is when I have been using when I've been trying to use Collaborate in Chrome, which they usually recommend with Blackboard, I haven't been able to share the screen. So I'm going to try sharing the screen just to see if you all are able to see that. So now do you see our course landing page?
No, ma'am.
Oh, shoot. Let me try again. Well, that looks super fun. Let's try this. So now do you see the course landing page or do you just see the chat?
I see it now.
Okay, that's good. Apparently, there's tricky ways to get Blackboard to work in different ways every single week. So feel free if you'd like to turn on your camera, and whenever you want to speak, you can just turn on your mic. And I'm going to share the screen today so we can go over some of the material for this week and talk about the paper. We also have some copies of the paper submitted already. So I haven't gotten the okay from the authors, and I hesitate to show you papers when I don't have the authors okay, but I think I could show them anonymously because I like what they do and I find it very helpful just to show you sample papers to, you know, remove any anxiety that you might have about what the paper expects you to do or how I will grade the paper. And boy, this screen is going to give me a headache. So I'm going to switch back over to the landing page just because I I was getting dizzy from the other one. But I'm assuming you can still hear me. And if you have any questions, you can turn on your mic and ask, or you can just put the question in the chat and we can just answer questions for a few minutes to start. I don't hear any questions, and I don't see anything in the chat, but feel free to ask me if you do have any questions as we go along. I'm assuming that you might want to talk a little bit about the paper that is coming up before we talk about the anti-racist women, but I can take a quick poll. So everybody can vote whether you would prefer to discuss the upcoming paper for a few minutes first, or if you say no, that means you'd rather discuss the anti-racist women first. I'm seeing 5 out of 7 say, let's take a quick look at the paper. So, sorry for all the dogs panting and the child mumbling in the background. That's just what things are like at my house. So, I'm going to go to those first couple of submissions. Let's see, I'm going to scroll up so you don't see the person's name and pretend that you didn't. So when I look at the papers, the process that I use is I first just have a look at the evidence. And with this paper, I asked you to put a couple of epigraphs, which are segments that come directly from one of the authors we have read, to set the stage and kind of narrate some opening ideas. Don't mind the dog making the noise. So here we have an excerpt from Freedom's Journal and an excerpt from Kendi, and an excerpt from Freedom's Journal in which a slave owner says that people who are enslaved definitely shouldn't read the works of the likes of Thomas Jefferson. And then we have the explanation here of the two epigraphs. Although Freedom's Journal was written in the face of slavery, Kendi's work shows that the discrimination from centuries ago still prevails through racist ideas that aim to make Black people feel despair or indifference and subpar. These ideas, like Black people not being as smart as white people, are similar to the tactics used during the time of slavery in order to keep the enslaved from becoming indignant at the discovery of their true potential. In both cases, Black people are purposely kept from resources and education to keep them at a disadvantage and make them out to feel less than others. So I think those are two really interesting quotes to start with. And it's fine with me if you start with Kendi or Du Bois and choose someone else, or if you really feel that Wheatley and Harper together make the best stage setting for your discussion, then that's great. I think what we are looking at with this paper is a definition of how racism works. And so it is an idea as discussed with these short excerpts from the longer epigraphs in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, it goes on to say, in this way, racism is more than an idea. It is a systemic form of discrimination that is designed to keep those affected at a disadvantage. As slaves were not often taught to read to keep them ignorant of their oppression, as stated by Freedom's Journal, Black people in the 21st century are more likely to have attended underfunded schools and are provided fewer resources to succeed. Also, if we this is just me editorializing, but in terms of the arguments about resources and systemic discrimination, the student loan debt among African Americans was much higher percentage wise than it was among white Americans, and also higher, but not as much among Latinx Americans. So, that's just another example that I'm throwing in as I read this. So, racism here is not merely a comment, it is a cycle of oppression, and we're talking about embedded systems. So, I like the way that this author has taken the concept of ideas that appear in both of these and translated it into racism as also systemic and one of the systems of oppression that perpetuates racism then is education. So I've read most of the paper and just pointed out a few things that I see going on in it. Do you have any questions about the paper or what the paper does so far? If you do, you can just turn on your mic or you can type the question in the chat. Or questions about what you're doing, because it's very likely that you're doing something different. And that's great because then I'm not reading the same paper over and over again. Okay, so I'm not hearing any questions. I am going to move over to the, oh, sorry, let me jump back there. Not at the moment, okay. So when I read the papers, I first read through all of it and wrap my head around it and think about it. And then I also try not to look at the author because I use the rubric that you should also be able to view in the assignment Dropbox to grade the paper. And the reason I try to stick to stick really closely to the rubric is to ensure fairness and to ensure that I'm grading you on what I asked you to do and that you're clear on the expectations. So titles are very important in papers. I often ask people to use a key term from one of the epigraphs in the title because that makes it really kind of cute, and that's how I like to write titles. So let's see. A suggestion I might make for this one is I like the very first line. I thought I was a subpar student because that explains how the racist idea of intellectual weakness belies the reality of the racist system of education. Does that make sense? So I might suggest a title such as and this is something that people in the humanities love, the colon in the title. I thought I was a subpar student. And you can see there is one in here in this very straightforward and descriptive title. Let's see, the racist system behind the idea. And I don't care how you capitalize things because I think it's really random how different publications and different editors want things capitalized. So usually I think in MLA you capitalize the first letter of every word, but in the quote, all of this isn't capitalized. So I don't know if you're really supposed to. It doesn't really matter. That's just my suggestion for the title. And I'm really not going to assess things like capitalization and how to change things in quotes, etc., because I don't fully understand it. So anyway, I'll just make that suggestion. And this is a little, in this title, it's a little bit obvious because, you know, it's a good try, but, you know, it can always be better. And of course, this person can then just put the other title in it or tell me what she thinks about it, because this is going to hopefully appear in the rubric feedback. In the epigraphs, certainly those two epigraphs really speak to each other. And I just think this is a really excellent pairing. So there's my comment on that part. I do think that the explanation of the evidence is really good. In this topic sentence here, in this way, racism is more than an idea. It is a systemic form of discrimination that is designed to keep those affected at a disadvantage, is the argument of the paper. And that's really beautifully crafted, this particular sentence, and set up in a really powerful way, I think, with the explanation of the idea itself in that paragraph. So here we have straightforward and precise. Love that. And then finally in originality, so let's see, a fresh definition of racism. It's more than an idea, it's a systemic form of discrimination. Yeah, I think that's a really great way to define racism and how it works. So the only thing that I didn't give full credit for in this particular example is the title, and I made the suggestion. So when I put in the feedback,
why wasn't it letting you?
so there's the feedback that I'll put in the paper. And this is how I would respond to all of the papers. And I keep accidentally showing you the author's name. I hope she won't be mad at me. But so there you have an example. Do all of you have any questions right now, having seen that strong sample paper and the feedback and the grading process?
Hi.
I don't have my camera on, so cut it out, you, Kelly.
But I just want to say hi.
My daughter says hi. She's not acting very sick as usual. Cat says hey. Oops, I just was going to type a comment, but I typed a question, or I typed a search. Let's see. Okay, I don't know how to do chats. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Bailey. I hope you didn't come to campus just for a class that wasn't actually there. But this child does have a bit of a stomach virus, so I don't want to pass that along. So anybody want to float some possible epigraphs or thesis statements? Can poll you on that again as to your choice, because that's kind of fun. I don't care about MLA or APA. Whichever you think looks nice is fine with me. And as long as I know which sources you're citing. Since we're using sources from class, you can just put the author's last name or the short title or whatever, because I'm not assessing anything having to do with MLA or APA. It's not in the rubric. Okay, that's supposed to say, would you prefer to float some ideas or create some new examples with the anti-racist women? Whoops, I accidentally ended the poll that I just made. Sorry about that. I'm looking at the screen 800 times. It might just make me crazy. Okay. So I think you can see the poll question going into infinity. And the question is, if you already have something you're thinking about doing and you would like to just float that idea and talk about that briefly, we can do that as we continue, or we can do some practice examples and put those right in that bonus discussion. Therefore, you can earn bonus points as you participate in class. Oh, this doesn't make any sense because it's yes or no. And my question is either or. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can set it off. Okay, I'm just going to change it. Okay, so our option is, do you want to create some new examples? Sorry, I updated it. Would you like to now create some new examples and put some new items in the discussion board right now during class to earn a few points while we are working with the ideas? Oh, sorry, I'm not making sense with yes or no. James, we just went over a sample paper. Are you kidding me? My connection is low. Hey, Eva Kelly, you can't play Roblox in here because you're cutting into my bandwidth for my class. So go in the other room by the router. Sorry about that. Shoot, I'm having bad bandwidth. Let me just check my 5 dogs on the bed here. We're all fascinated with whatever we're doing. Bridget, you're in my way. Who is on top of my phone? That is a lovely bone, Otto. That's just lovely. It's truly lovely. I'm trying to get up, though. Turkey. Okay, stay. I'm starting to think these connection problems are coming from people watching too much Netflix in my neighborhood. I'm going to show you just for a laugh. Oh, I guess I can't share video. Okay, I was just going to show you who is helping me teach class here. These are my assistants, 2 Shelties, a dingo, a golden doodle, and a cat who doesn't care how many dogs are on the bed. Oh yeah, and my child is sitting over there on the floor trying to use up all the bandwidth because I kicked her out. Okay, so it looks like enough of you are interested in going ahead and working on these examples. So I'm going to go to... Anyway, here is the instructions for the paper with some strange formatting. When you click right on top here on the first paper, you can look at the Word document, or you can look at the sample paper, and then you can click here for the grading rubric, and that should help you find everything that Otto, I don't want you to whack me upside the head with that bone. You can go lie down with your bone. Pardon the dog. Okay. So that, for example, if you click here for the rubric, you can see the criteria I used in the other sample. And I think it won't let me add anything, but if you just click in this box, which is not necessarily obvious, you can cut and paste your paper, or you can upload a Word file. And if you do a Word file, then I can use track changes to put feedback within the paper. So you can add the comment that I might do that. So let's move forward to this week's material. And it's really difficult. I'll show you how crazy it is to try to move things. That wasn't too bad, but moving the material that are in the folders back and forth see, it tries to go in the wrong place. It all kind of jumps around, so it's hard for me to order things exactly like I want them, and it's even more difficult if I try to move them all into modules instead of folders, because they literally jump around. But a good place to start, and really the document that we might want to start with today, is this one that's jumping up and down. Okay, forget about that document. Let's go to the discussion. Because as I was working on the planning for class today, I was really excited about all of the documents that reflect Frances Ellen Watkins Harper's work. So I put a whole bunch of documents and a whole bunch of choices in this bonus discussion. in the hopes that different people would just kind of browse through them and choose different items that you might find interesting. So this is a background video with information about Frances Harper. This is Felicia Rashad reading one of her poems. This is an essay about Phyllis Wheatley. If you were interested in finding out more about Phyllis Wheatley's relationship with her husband that was allegedly a negative relationship, this is an article by Honoré Fanon Jeffers, and I don't know why it's starting on that page. I'm sorry. Only one page. Okay. This is from a book called The Fire This Time, and it's about Phyllis Wheatley as a contemporary of those other African American leaders that we've talked about in the previous weeks, and then her argument about Phyllis Wheatley's husband. And to go with that, which this is again not in the best order, to go with this information about Honoré Fanon Jeffers, are a series of short films that are fictionalized accounts of Phyllis Wheatley's relationship with her husband. So those are a really interesting option that, excuse me, you can write about in the discussion and use one for the paper. And here we have the resource that Ashley used in her response about Frances Harper, where Frances Harper criticizes the lack of coalitions, the lack of cooperation among abolitionists and suffragists after the Civil War. So this is the speech from 1866, excuse me, that you might want to look at. And Harper is speaking in the, oh my goodness, sorry about my voice. Harper is speaking at a women's rights convention in New York City. Something I think is really interesting about Harper in the years after the Civil War, she was constantly on a stagecoach traveling from north to south. She was traveling, in this case in May 1866, to this women's rights convention. But earlier in that month, she had been in Beaufort, South Carolina, helping to start a school for the freed people. And I know that because I've read some letters that Harper wrote to another abolitionist whose name is Wendell Phillips. And I've had the opportunity to go to different archives and different libraries around the country to read about the people who were friends with Frances Harper and look for letters from her to learn more about her through the collections, say, about her friend Wendell Phillips. The reason that it's so difficult to gain more information about Harper is that her publisher disposed of all of her papers, drafts, and documents, excuse me, at the time of her death. They were thrown in the trash. And that just absolutely kills me. But, you know, they figured out she's dead. We don't need her stuff anymore. Whereas when someone is an author and an activist and a leader, the normal thing for a publisher to do is to give them to a library. We have, you know, archives dedicated to Shakespeare and even to Phyllis Wheatley at UNC Charlotte. But Harper was traveling from north to south, helping the freed people, as I said, to start schools, start farms, and also working in the women's rights, continuing the women's rights activism. So as she takes the platform and identifies herself as a Black woman and talks about the fact that when her husband died, he had some debts, because farmers often do. All of his things were taken from her, except for, as she says, a looking glass, a mirror, that there's this tremendous inequity toward her as a woman because her husband, as a farmer, had died in debt, the crops hadn't come in, etc. So she was thrown out of her home with her husband. So she's talking there about her rights as a woman, although there have been outrages against her as an African American woman and as a black person. Goes to a doctor, or I'm sorry, goes to a neighbor, and that neighbor tries to sue to take more of her belongings, etc. And then here we have the truly amazing part of the speech. We're all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul. You tried that in the case of the Negro. So here she's now going to talk about racial oppression and the ways that she moves from talking about racial oppression to oppression of black women, to oppression of women that white women identify with, I think is truly powerful in this short speech. And the grand and glorious revolution that has commenced is the end of slavery. But until the nation is truly a republic and includes women, then we won't be able to attain our highest humanity. But then she criticizes white women, and says if we just give white women the ballot, and when she says woman, she means white women, because at this point her white women contemporaries, especially Elizabeth Cady Stanton, demand stopping the constitutional amendment for universal manhood suffrage, the 15th Amendment, to enfranchise black men because white women can't vote. So Stanton is trying to put a roadblock in the way of black men voting. Harper, on the other hand, cannot stand against black men voting because she doesn't believe that white women have her best interest at heart either. So she's standing in the middle of a crossroads here, and this is such an incredibly powerful speech that talks about the intersection of race and gender and the lack of rights that she has to deal with in this double disadvantage of racism and sexism simultaneously. But I don't want to just kind of talk and blather on and bore you to death. What I would like you to do, and I'm going to go back to the other documents, even though I do like to wax on forever about Harper, is I would like each of you to choose one of these documents, watch one of the short films, or read this other excerpt that I also really like, which is a short story. Listen to the poem and just think of some really powerful statements that you also might use in your paper to talk about the effects of racism. Now here, this is, I'm sorry, not the greatest copy, but this is a story called The Mission of the Flowers. And it's about a beautiful garden, but then the roses decide that they're going to change all of the flowers into roses, which is a little bit, it's an interesting metaphor. And for those of you that like things that are literary and more metaphorical, this story of the garden and of what happens when the roses take over and kind of become colonizers and decide that they want all of the flowers to be roses is a really fascinating metaphor that Harper wrote. There's a dog sitting on top of my head, literally right now. Sorry. So if each of you wants to, look at these things and choose a different one to add to the discussion, then that will give you some time in the next few minutes to contribute to this discussion and get the bonus points. And this particular discussion has 5 maximum points, but when you add replies, you can get even more bonus points. So right now, I'd say if each of you wants to go ahead and look through the options in this bonus discussion. If you have any questions about anything you see in the bonus discussion, then go ahead and ask. Or if you've come up with any questions about anything else, then go ahead and ask, and I'd be glad to explain a little bit more to you about the Revolutionary Women. Now, I've skipped over Pauline Hopkins a little bit. So if you want to talk about Pauline Hopkins in this discussion instead of Frances Harper, because I just went a little Frances Harper crazy, I'll show you quickly. We have the quiz about Dash for Liberty. And in this document, Anti-Racist Women Through the Centuries, we have a little bit referring back to Phyllis Wheatley, the description of Harper, and then going on to Pauline Hopkins. And it's a pain in the neck to find the copy of Dash for Liberty. But this is a rewrite of a story first written by Frederick Douglass called The Heroic Slave, and it's based on a true story about a slave rebellion. And I just didn't choose to spend as much time on that because I'm on this Frances Harper kick at the moment. One last thing that I will think, because if you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, the reason I have made this particular folder full of many different options and not requiring you to do all of them, but asking you to choose your own additional sources that are available, is because I like to offer choices, and I want you to find something within these choices that you find interesting. And by adding to the discussion, everybody can learn a little bit about a wide range of selections, and it saves a lot of time because everybody doesn't have to do everything. You just kind of go off on your own and choose something that you think looks appealing. But I think I might add one more item. And if you're not listening to me right now and you're just browsing through the documents and thinking about your discussion post, that's perfectly okay. You can ignore me if you want to. But I'm thinking about adding one more thing.
Hello?
Yes?
Yeah, I know I'm a little late. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, something now or pick something I'm too late.
Well,
Well,
if you want to turn off your
if you
mic.
want to turn off your mic.
So what we've done so far is looked at a sample paper, and I'll upload a video of this class so you can see the sample paper and the sample rubric on YouTube. But then I was just showing everyone the selections of available things you might look for in this bonus discussion, which offers examples from Pauline Hopkins, Frances Watkins Harper, and Phyllis Wheatley that are also in this week's folder. And my goal is not that you should have to look at every single document that I put in the folder and also in this discussion, but that you kind of poke around and explore these different links and different documents and see if you find one that you like, and then post in the discussion about it to tell your classmates about it. So I'm going to turn off my mic if anybody else has further questions. So what we're doing now is really just kind of having some free exploration so that you can start a bonus discussion a bonus discussion post about one of the anti-racist women that we have information collected in the folder for this week. So I just had my mic off in case anyone else wants to ask questions. I thought I had downloaded an essay that I published about Harper in African American Review in like 2009, but now I can't find it. So I'm just going to turn off my mic again in case you have questions, and I'm going to go to the library and find that document. Okay, so like I said, you can, of course, ignore me and just go ahead and keep doing a little exploration of the suggested materials that I put in the discussion. But I also just located in JSTOR through the library database an essay that I wrote about Harper that's also kind of relevant to some of these materials in this discussion, the bonus discussion for this week that is called Choose Your Phenomenal Woman. And back to the essay. Whoops, I was just talking without my microphone on. And I can't believe I have a bad connection, even here with AT&T. Okay, so just to recap, there's a discussion this week that is a bonus discussion. And it doesn't matter in this class how you earn your points, as long as you earn enough points. So this is a good opportunity, and I'm giving you all the opportunity right now to look through some of these various documents that I posted, or you can look at other materials about Phyllis Wheatley or Pauline Hopkins to share what you found in this little brief scavenger hunt with the class. But I also wanted to add to the folder, just for fun, this article that I published 13 years ago. It actually wasn't that long ago. They like predated it because they were disorganized. But it is about Harper, and it is about her break with the National Women's Suffrage Association. And there is an explanation of the break she had with Stanton and Anthony and this argument over suffrage for black men versus suffrage for white women. And I thought I had downloaded it, but apparently I didn't. So I'll just throw this in too. If you just want to, for curiosity, see what an academic article looks like. And it's still not in my downloads. Otto, I'm really excited that you have that bone. Get out of my way. It's very exciting. Go lie down, silly dog. Okay. So if you want to look at it, I just threw in that article.